This session is especially for financial packages, ERP systems, accountancy systems, accounts payable, accounts receivable, but especially also for integrators. And it is to help you and your colleagues to understand actually what Storecove does on the one hand, how we collaborate with you as a financial package, the collaboration we have together. And it's about, in this example, Malaysia, with the special setup that is needed in Malaysia. So let's start with Storecove. Storecove being an e-invoicing and compliancy provider for many years. We started the company in 2015. So we're quite experienced and we have quite some customers all over the world. And as you see, what we do is we help customers connect their ERP system via a RESTful JSON API. This is what we'll talk about later. And for some software solutions, we integrate the solution for e-invoicing and compliance within the software itself. We're situated at 4 locations. So the headquarters is in Amsterdam, situated in New York, Tokyo, and Kuala Lumpur. So we cover quite some of the time zones needed for our customers. The Storecove API. So there are some special features about the API that we offer, and this is for many companies the reason why they use our API, because connecting to an API means two-way communication. But what Storecove does special is we automatically listen to the other side. When you send an invoice, we listen to the other side, what format is needed on the other side. The ERP systems, the financial packages that connect to our API connect with JSON data, which is quite a broad set of data. And when we send an invoice, we listen to the other side and automatically produce that format that's needed on the other side. So that means that the receiver can immediately process the format that they receive. Well, this is ideal because for developers, that means that they don't have to maintain all different kinds of formats. They don't have to adjust technically when there's a new format or a new regulation in a certain country. They can just technically connect once to our API and then they're done. The other way around, receiving, our API works the same. When you receive an invoice, no matter what electronic invoice format it is, we always generate the same JSON data from that document. That means that also on the receiving side, when you connect the API, you will always receive the same JSON. So connecting only needed once and then you're done. And this brings, of course, that we can make sure that we're compliant locally in many jurisdictions. And it also brings to the right global distribution that we can connect to several e-invoicing networks. And as you might know, in Europe and in Asia, there's PEPL, the PEPL network, an open exchange network for e-invoices, but also other documents. And for instance, in North America, Canada and Mexico, there's also an open exchange network, but that's called the DBNA network. We, with Storecove, are connected to both networks, and the API connection brings that you can send and receive over both networks. As a general overview of what sort of customers we serve, to the left, a few names of financial packages, ERP systems, accounts payable that connected to our API. And by doing so, they can offer all their customers e-invoicing, sending and receiving. And they can also offer compliance. So meaning compliance when you need to send an invoice to the tax authority and you need a certificate back or a QR code. This is the second element, what we do for these financial packages. And to the right is that it shows that we distribute via integrators. And integrators, of course, have good relations with their customers. And once the integrator is up and running with the Storecove API and they have a lot of knowledge about the Storecove API, they can easily connect new customers, other of their customers that also have some e-invoicing need or some reporting need. And so it's the integrators that actually build the API connection once, and then per new customer, they just have to generate a new API key to connect that new customer. So that's ideal for the customer because they already have a trusted relation with their integrator. And it's ideal actually for us because that brings that there's a distribution model where we can have a trusted relation with these integrators. Here, a short, let's say, infographic on how the process works. To the right, you see Storecove has an API, which I explained, a RESTful JSON API, that the integrator or the in-house developer connects to. And to the left, you see the customer with their specific needs. So they have an ERP system. It could be that it's about accounts receivable, it's about accounts payable, so that it's about receiving or sending. Or some company might want to start only with sending, and the other might want to start only with receiving, and some might want to start with both. But what's important is that the end goal of connecting means that financial packages are connected on a data level. And here you see how this is achieved. Here you see the API connections, and it is the developer or the integrator in between that connects the ERP system to the Storecove API. And to the right, you see when you're connected to the Storecove API, you can do what I explained, sending and receiving e-invoices. But this is example of some countries where we supply reporting. So for instance, in Italy, we make sure that when an invoice is sent, it's sent to SDI, the Italian tax authority. Here to the right, you see Malaysia. When we send an invoice, we make sure that it's sent to LHDNM. And then the certificate, the long ID comes back, and we send the invoice together with the certificates. And so that's called compliance. Here's some functions about what extra is within the API and is within webhooks. To the left, you see archiving. Of course, the invoices that we send, you can archive in your own system. But because we generate the invoice at the moment that you send it, we don't know which format we're going to produce. And so that's what evidence is for. It means that when you send an invoice, you can receive the evidence of the invoice that was originally delivered. And so you have the format that the customer received and processed. And that's the format that you can store in your own system. So that's called evidence, and that works via webhooks. And the same is true as you see under point 1, the invoice as cleared by the tax authority. Again, you send to the tax authority, but of course you want that with a certificate and want it cleared. And so that's the invoice you can also retrieve via webhooks. To the right, you see what we call future here, but some access points already support this, and some countries already mandated this. Which is invoice response. So invoice response means that when you send an invoice, you would normally receive a notification, for instance, that it's been received or that it's been rejected. But here you can see that there are deeper responses from the receiver. So you can also learn, for instance, that the invoice has been authorized or set for payment or even paid. But this only works when the receiving access point developed and connected this part properly. And as at this moment, there are 360 access points around the world. Not all of these have properly implemented invoice response. So that's why we say this is something for the future. In Singapore, for instance, it is mandatory. So every access point needs to have invoice response implemented. But for instance, in Malaysia, this is something for the future. But it is interesting as management information for the companies that start sending and receiving invoices. Here, once again, about the two networks. So there's the Open Exchange Network PEPL, and there's the Open Exchange Network DBN Alliance. Both are open exchange networks. PEPL works with authorities per country. So in Malaysia, for instance, the authority is called MDEC. In the Netherlands, it's called the Dutch PEPL Authority. And this is different from what DBNA is. So the DBNA is also an open exchange network, but it's a not-for-profit organization. And actually, it's industry-led. So DBNA network, it's more companies that decide on what the network should look like. And that also brings that there's an idea on the DBNA network that's not on the PEPL network yet, is that they said we're gonna generate all identifiers globally. So meaning that every country and every company in the world could connect to the DBNA network, which of course makes this network really interesting, because as long as you go via a DBNA access point provider, you can make sure that you connect your company to the DBNA network. And of course, the US market is quite a large market, so also interesting to be connected to. Below you read some about Storecove itself. So Storecove is involved in both networks, even in the board of directors at the DBNA network. But technically, and this is the most important part, we are involved in both technical commissions. So we stay up to date with the latest information of both networks. Here you see this four-corner model, as they are called. So the Peppol network in this picture, it's about, hey, you have a sending access point, you have a receiving access point, and you have the sender and the receiver. And actually, the only thing that the access points do is they help the companies connect to this Peppol network in between. And then, of course, there are these notifications and there are specifications about formats. But most important to the sender and the receiver is that as soon as they connect to an open exchange network, they can send and receive invoices to and from every company from which they know the identifier. And the identifier, mostly stipulated per country, like two identifiers, for instance, a business registration number and a VAT number. And then those numbers that you already own are the numbers that you sign up with on an open exchange network. And so it's not like the networks specially generate identifiers for you to register on the network. Now you already have your common identifiers, and those are the identifiers that are used by the access points to sign your company up to the open exchange network. Here you can see the terminology dynamic lookup, and this is about you send an invoice, and actually when doing so, you ask via the access point if the receiver, the identifier of the receiver, is present on the network. And if so, somewhere in the world, some access points answers, yes, it's with me, please send it. And then it also answers what format they would like to receive. And so this is where Storecove is special. We then automatically generate that specific format. So connecting to an open exchange network means once you're connected, you can send to everyone on the network, and the other way around, everyone can reach you as long as they know your identifier. Well, and as I said, MDEC is the Peppol authority in Malaysia. So what they did, they decided on what formats are going to be used in Malaysia. They decided on the identifiers that are used in Malaysia, and they govern the access points themselves. So they make sure that the access points properly validate and are in a good contact with the Peppol authority, so that they do everything like the Peppol authority wants them to. Here you see the objective. So the objective of, in this case, the MDEC organization is, of course, to have an interoperable e-invoicing network and to make sure that all businesses with their ERP system are connected on a data level. So it's really simple. It's this moment in time that brings that this is possible. And there's a lot of proof in other countries that this model works. And even a model that also works the same, a telephone network, has the same setup. That's also a four-corner model with providers. Here they are called access points. That brings that everyone can send and receive via these networks. And let's go to the next slide, because in Malaysia, there are two different parts of the game. So on the one hand, of course, there's this mandate. There's the tax authority, LHDNM, that wants every company in Malaysia to send invoices via the tax authority. You know that there are rules around this. So first, it's a batch of 4,000 large Malaysian companies that need to start reporting. Then there will be a batch for the second wave, medium-sized, and then a third batch for the smaller companies. Well, 1st of August this year, the large Malaysian companies have to be connected. And so what will happen is that a company that sends an invoice first needs to send that to the tax authority. And here to the right, you see that there are three different ways to do this. You can actually upload invoices to the tax authority. You can build your own connection, your own API connection to the tax authority. But here to the left, there's something special. And this is what Storecove brings and makes Storecove special, because there's a second organization called MDEC that wants to promote the infrastructure for e-invoices. And this is the same four-corner model we just discussed, because when you would not use an infrastructure like Peppol, you can report your invoice to the tax authority, but after you receive the certificate, then you send it per email. And that's not really a safe way of sending invoices, but also you don't get the responses that are really valuable. So this is what the e-invoicing networks are for, and this is the reason why in Malaysia the Peppol network is promoted, because they want to have a future-proof network that also opens, let's say, opens up the world for Malaysian companies, because once they connect to the Peppol network, they can send to whichever company in the world of which they know the identifier. And so such an open exchange network is safe, it's efficient, and it brings that you can be tax compliant. And so that is why an access point like Storecove, offering both the LHDNM reporting functionality plus Peppol, is ideal, because technically, again, you only need to connect once to the API, and then you're adhering to both regulations. And we understand that at this moment, LHDNM, of course, is the main goal, because 1st of August this year, you need to be ready. But the left part, the Open Exchange Network, brings that you're future-proof. And this is advocated in Malaysia to immediately start with both. Well, Storecove has many years of experience in both. So that's why we agreed with a lot of companies on helping them in Malaysia. This flow just shows you once more, when you're connected with the ERP system to the API, what happens when you send an invoice. And these are the three phases we go through. First phase is the compliance phase. When you send an invoice from your ERP system, we first check if it needs to be reported somewhere. This is mostly based on the location where you as a sender are situated. And so when you're situated in Malaysia, you of course have to adhere to the reporting to LHDNM. So that's what we do first. We then report, we get the certificate back, and then we try and send the invoice over an open exchange network, as here in the middle. We try to send it via Peppol. So if the receiving Malaysian company is on the Peppol network, we immediately deliver within a few seconds. But if it's not on the network, that could mean that it's on the other network, the DBNA network. So we always also check the DBNA network. And if the identifier is there, we deliver immediately. If it's not on the DBNA network, we try to send it via email. And that needs something else. That needs what we call the fallback email address. Because here, when you send it and you have added an identifier for the Open Exchange network, that's enough to deliver on that network. But if you can't deliver there, we need a fallback email address. A fallback email address is the email address that you would always send your invoices to. And so these two elements, identifier plus fallback email address, is what you need as a sender to add in the invoice so that we have the full details. And when we deliver an invoice, of course, also via email, we deliver it as an electronic document. But also, if that's added in the beginning, we deliver the PDF. And so that means that both the electronic invoice, UBL format, or in Malaysia, MYPIN format, plus the PDF are exchanged over the network and delivered at the receiver. And in this setup, that means that whenever there's an extra receiver on the Peppol network, it means there's one less via email. So this is a sort of a transition model where you grow from, let's say, the old world with emails and PDFs sent via email towards open exchange via these open exchange networks. Here are some benefits, of course, when you're considering what to do first. As I said, you can, as a Malaysian company, just connect to LHDNM, and then you're adhering to the rules of the 1st of August. But the next step will be that you want to connect to the Peppol network, as your customers are starting to ask for that. As your customers are on the Peppol network, they want to use the efficiency of the network, and they will say, dear supplier, we are on the Peppol network. If you send us electronic invoices, it will be much more efficient for us because we don't have to process them. They immediately pop up as a booking proposal. So please send us your invoices electronically and please sign up to the network. So that means, why wait? Why not in one API connect to both LHDNM and the Peppol network? So of course, this is what we advocate, but also because we support many companies in this sense. Of course, it's an early digital transformation, so everything is safe, transported in encrypted format, and this reduces cost. It helps your customers because they can now receive electronically. It is safe, it's traceable. So there are a lot of reasons why you could use the infrastructure of an open exchange network. And especially number 3, it's scalable. Fully automating, of course, brings scalability. Well, then for you as an employee of one of these companies, financial packages or an integrator, of course, want to know, okay, what are the steps to get started? What can I tell my customer? Well, it's not that difficult because actually there are only 2 steps. Your customer asks to be connected to an open exchange network or LHDNM. So the only thing that needs to happen is internally, you need to generate a new API key. And so we say once together with you, we build the API connection. And once that API connection is done, the only thing per new or extra customer, what you have to do is generate a new API key for that specific customer, insert the API key, and then that new customer with their ERP system can also connect to the network. So the work mainly is in the beginning, and then customer for customer after that one API connection can be connected just by creating a new API key. With the reporting to LHDNM, there is this special rule that you as a company or your customer as a company needs to appoint the intermediary that they want to use to send invoices to LHDNM. This is, of course, to make it more safe. So what your customers need to do, customer for customer, is log into the LHDNM system, select their intermediary, in this case, Storecove, and from that moment onwards, every invoice that you from your ERP system has sent in Malaysia will first be sent to LHDNM, will get the certificate, and then it will be sent compliantly. So then you comply with regulations in Malaysia. And so you see, it's quite simple, but you just have to inform your customers properly because they just want to know what they're about to experience. In Malaysia, we have local colleagues. So one of them called Aaron Suta. He is technically involved quite a lot, and he helped MDEC with their technical model and then work on the S&P. So he has a lot of knowledge. And our second colleague is Zamri Mott. He worked for MDEC, so he also knows a lot about the regulations. So feel free, if you have questions about the technical part or more general part, to reach out to one of my colleagues. And as it shows here, we have support during the day. And then you might think, okay, but what about when it's at night? Well, everything we do is in queues. So that means when you send an invoice, but it can't be delivered, it will just wait in queue until the system, whichever system, is up again, and then we deliver it anyhow. So that's why support during normal working hours is enough. In our experience, we do this for over 10 years. And well, we like to wish you a successful connection. And if you have questions, reach out to one of my colleagues. Thank you so much and have a good day.